Ladies and gents, almost Reaction, and this is The Emperor of Man, The Rise of Humanity, Warhammer 40,000 Lore by Channel Lutin09. We saw the Age of Strife, what is it called? Yeah, the Age of Strife, in which we realized how low humanity went. They basically went to the Mad Max level of low on Terra, basically. And, then Martians, right? The Martians basically rose up, those Mechanicus people, and they basically slowly started to help create more Forge world, which I think is smart after the fall. That would be the best thing to do, because like I explained in the previous reaction, that whenever I play a game that has some kind of a building an empire mechanic to it, I always work on building building aspect of it. I don't know, gathering resources, anything that makes me actual build stuff. I've always focused on that first before doing anything else, because if you have something that you can make with factories or anything, so basically forge worlds to make weapons, equipment, resources, that's the best thing you can have. So yeah. So basically creation of Slness cut off the warp connection to humans, basically. And somebody in the comments also said that the destructions of Eldar in the end helped humanity. Sure, but it also hurt it in a big way, cut off all connection with all the other worlds. I think it hurted more than it helped, I guess. So yeah, so first war with the AIs started the downfall and the fall of Eldar, and cut off connection with the warp. So all the different worlds are cut off with each other. That basically killed off lots of worlds. So in the end, it kind of helped, but majority did more damage, I guess. So now with the lowest point that is, right, now humanity is going to slowly rise up with the Emperor on the head of it. Right, Emperor is going to introduce himself, I guess, the Emperor of Man and the Unification Wars, I guess. So they're going to be wars, right? Emperor is basically going to fight wars to unify the humanity, and that will basically create the Imperium that we know. So let's watch this one. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like, subscribe. Check out the reaction, there's a link in the description. Check out the cast for play second. Check out the end cards, and yeah, let's watch it. And remember, people, if you don't like any part of the reaction that I do, definitely comment down so I know where I should improve or what. It would be a valuable feedback. Yeah, let's watch it.
So the Age of Strife was coming to an end, but before we move forward, we need to move back some 2,000 years to M28 to M30. Humanity had now come close to the brink of destruction itself. So many worlds had fallen into disarray, starvation, chaos, anarchy. Now was the time. This would be the time where the mysterious and powerful Psyker who had wandered amongst humanity for thousands of years would come to the fore to lead humanity from an edge of unsalvageable darkness back into the light and resume their place as a meaningful power in the galaxy. Earth had by now been reduced to a chemically irradiated barren wasteland, its population slaughtered, and all that remained were degenerate, feral nomads fighting for irrelevant territories, insane wandering prophets, and cyber-augmented techno-barbarians who lived for nothing other than to fight, created in the cradle of world-ending war.
Don't want to pause so early, but I always bitch about it since I started to react to Warhammer 40k, that a massive AAA game would be so good, like Skyrim or Fallout. Look, in Elder Scrolls, the timeline that they created during Morrowind, making of Morrowind, they expanded the lore, in which we realized that all the 5 games that took place is really small part of the window in the massive timeline where events happen of Elder Scrolls. Now Elder Scrolls Online has come, which takes place long before the 5 Elder Scrolls takes place, right? And utilizing that lore. So that's what I'm thinking with this. There are so many elements like Warhammer 40k, current times, there's so many things to do there. But the Age of Strife, you can make a multiple massive games like Elder Scrolls about Age of Strife too, like Mad Max style, right? And you can have some Easter eggs here and there that basically connects to all the other games, even though they might be thousands of years apart. Just that fun, Easter egg and connecting thing. And if somebody like Bethesda makes, I know somebody also said Bethesda sucks. Not in this way. I mean, Elder Scrolls Skyrim is so good that even after 10 years, people who played and put thousands and thousands of hours into the game are still finding small stories and small things here and there that they didn't even 10 years ago, even after 50 playthroughs. So something like Bethesda could really bring Warhammer 40k world alive in games, I guess. I don't know.
Empires would rise and disintegrate as quickly and forgettably as they had risen. No tribe or faction had enough power or resources to make any meaningful stand, and so it went on, pathetic fighting over the remnants of a ravaged world. Out of this seemingly endless horror came a single man, a warlord like no other. His title in these early days is unknown, but we would know who he would rise to become: the Emperor of Man. He would first conquer and then rebuild humanity, leading it into the light, saving it from itself to form his autocracy, known as the Imperium of mankind. Unlike so many before him though, he had power not only as an unstoppable warrior, but in many other traits such as rational thinking, tactics, philosophy, economics, compassion, foresight, and perhaps most importantly, a genius of science, everything and more that would be required for a supreme leader. The Emperor, though, fought not for selfish personal gain or bloodlust of war like all the other scattered remnants of humanity left on Earth. He had selfless, higher goals to restore humanity spiritually, intellectually, and physically, to revert us to a time of strength and prosperity. These were the years of the Unification Wars. The Emperor had long held a facility deep in a range of mountains previously known as the Himalayas. This was his most significant stronghold and would later become the Imperial power.
I knew it. Emperor is an Indian. I knew it. No, but seriously. Emperor, being, alive for thousands of years, right? Basically, he would have a lot of scientific and all the different type of knowledge that would basically help out humanity at the time.
Yes. Here he experimented with genetics as well as developing and constructing weapons and armor for his warriors. In the earliest days, he would physically and genetically augment some of the most powerful barbarians. These humanoids would become known as the Thunder Warriors. The very first of their kind and the most basic template for what would eventually become the Imperial Space Marines, the Astartes, the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Under unsurmountable pressure from the Emperor's army of Thunder Warriors, the barbaric factions fell quickly and humanity was united on old Earth for the first time in centuries. This, however, would come at a terrible cost for the Thunder Warriors themselves, and is one of the least known yet darkest events for mankind. In order to unify Earth and bring humanity back on the path of advancement and strength, the Emperor had found it necessary to...
Alright, can we just take a moment and... He looks completely different than all the humans. Look at those eyes, that face in front of all these people. So basically just going near him like, whoa, what the fuck? That's not just some normal guy. Look at that.
In part, cleanse the savagery that had grown on the war-torn planet. This sadly meant the death of many arguable innocents during the Unification Wars, as well as the eradication of the last remaining religious church on Earth, known as the Church of the Lightning Stone. The Emperor is known to have personally spoken to the last remaining priest before bringing in his new age of enforced sex.
Okay, so lots of religion died while Emperor rose up, and then they made religion out of him.
Rationalism and the ideology known as the Imperial Truth. This essentially tells that humanity are now those destined to be the rulers of the galaxy. The Eldar had their chance and failed, and now humanity are the best set to take their place as the dominant force. This ideology would soon be brought to all the scattered worlds of humanity in the long crusade that was yet to come.
Alright, as soon as he bringing up the point, right, I'm pausing it because I'll forget what I wanted to say. So basically he's saying the Eldar had their chance and they failed. But we know humans will fail too because of Horus heresy. After that it's all fucked because Emperor is fucked. So the point is, what if Horus heresy didn't happen, right? What if humans reach the Eldar level of success? Because I said that in the previous panel, lots of people in the comments basically said that Eldars obviously were way long before even human existed, right? They are like dinosaur time type of people. They're that old, and they reached the peak and success that humans never did. So humans were powerful and advanced in a different way, but as an overall advancement, Eldar used their psychic powers to bring on the technologies and advancement that humans never reached. So they were that powerful. But what if humans, without Horus Heresy, would have just gone successful at the point like they would be as technologically advanced as once Eldar were, and they would go to the same way the Eldar did. I know Eldars were more psychically powered people, but what if just by the numbers of humans they would have gone the same way of debauchery and shit, and they would have created another god or something? But no, if they would have gone that way, they would have just attracted Slanesh, because there's already Slanesh exists. You can't create that kind of a god again if already a god like that exists in the chaos, right? I mean, that god literally represent those things. If anything become powerful in those particular things, it would literally attract Slanesh. So I don't think it would have created a god. It would just attract Slanesh to humans now. Yeah, I don't know.
Now, the official version of things tells how the last battle of the Unification Wars takes place on Mount Ararat. This siege to cleanse the last of the techno-barbarians from the ruined wastes on Earth and finally bring it back to a time of peace and growth was said to be so brutal that waves of Thunder Warriors fell against the rocks in resistance, were slain to a single man, the legendary warrior Arik Taranis, the Lightning Bearer. He would raise the banner of lightning to mark the end of the Unification Wars, setting in place the rule of the Emperor of Man, before he too would fall to fatal wounds suffered in this battle of legend. As with many things, the official version is not the end of the story. The actuality of the event was darker and far more sinister. The Emperor knew that in order to restore peace, growth and a sense of civilization to his new and expanding empire, he would require a more stable and balanced force than the Thunder Warriors, who were essentially just adept brutes recruited from the wasteland, albeit clad in the earliest Imperial armor. In a necessary betrayal, the Emperor realized that in order to safeguard what he had achieved, his army of barbaric fighters could not exist past this time. It is believed that he actually ordered the many Thunder Warriors who had survived the final battle to be slaughtered by his elite guard, and possibly even some of the early proto-Astartes, who were at this time far advanced beyond most of his standard force.
Oh, I didn't like that a bit. As soon as he started talking, I'm like, yeah, Emperor killed them. Yeah, I don't see your place in my new and enlightened and advanced world. You were barbarians and still kinda are, so you have to die. That's just fucked up.
This terrible secret has been concealed from the people of the Imperium for more than 10,000 years, and were it ever to be revealed, the consequences could be unimaginably disastrous. The Emperor, though, saw this necessary evil had to come to pass.
Okay, maybe around this time he's talking about, because in the 40k time, right? I mean, everything Emperor does is absolute, right? Yeah, Emperor had them killed off because Emperor wanted to. Would people basically rise up? Because entire Imperium worships Emperor, and anything beyond Emperor is heresy. So if Emperor wanted them, they're already dead. So I guess he's talking about around this time, at 30k time, where, revelation of that would have been disastrous. Not in the 40k time, because in 40k, who gives a fuck? Emperor wanted them dead, they're dead.
For the greater good, a sacrifice of the few to save the many who would come. The Thunder Warriors were built for war, and war alone, and would not be able to adapt to a time of peace, and could even have turned a vital tool into a dangerous, unstable threat that could unbalance all that he had achieved. In order for the next stage of his plans, he also required that humanity rally behind him as the sole and most powerful force.
But during the Horus Heresy, could those warriors would have been helpful? But they would have been split apart too with the Primarchs, right? There could have been a chaos-driven and Emperor's side, so it wouldn't have mattered in the end.
The slaughter of the Thunder Warriors was not the last act of betrayal, though, by the Emperor. He would then take the necessary glory that he had near single-handedly reunified Terra. This distortion of the truth, while hugely distasteful, does appear largely necessary to reunite the whole of humanity and create the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. Nonetheless, should the truth ever arise, it would at best split apart the Imperium and at worst destroy it. These choices by the Emperor are important to remember in the context of his character, as it can lead to certain logical speculations regarding future events. Some Thunder Warriors, though, would find fate on their side and escape this mass killing and live on as homeless unknowns, seeking out a miserable existence at the bottom of society. Honours forgotten, their deeds meaningless, all the while fearing constant discovery from the Imperium and certain death.
Oh, this is one of those elements, right? Is it a trope? I don't know. Like, you know, how Obi-Wan was with Star Wars. Was a massive Jedi Master, but just wandering the waste as an unknown, hiding away. People think he's just some moron, but in the end he's a badass, that kind of element. So you could create story with that alone.
This heartless betrayal was surely one of the darkest periods in Imperial history. They were never hunted, though, in any significant way. The Emperor believed them all dead, and besides, there were far more important tasks at hand, as the Emperor now gathered a team of gene wrights salvaged from the few remaining humans on Earth. These were men with practical knowledge of genetics to aid in his development of the new Astartes project. Those Thunder Warriors who did escape were not like the Astartes of the 41st millennium. They were genetically unstable, and most significantly, they only had a minimally extended mortality beyond that of a regular human. Unlike the space...
Alright, so I get it. I said that those Thunder Warriors would have been a good addition for, that they would have made a difference in Horus Heresy, but not really. The newer Astartes were clearly much better and advanced than them. So in Horus Heresy, they wouldn't have mattered, I guess.
Space Marines who can live on for thousands of years. The Emperor had been working for decades on his Astartes project, deep within his mountain facility. Here he would create the vital foundations that would springboard humanity into a new age. His experiments would create the 20 Space Marine legions known as the Legiones Astartes, as well as 20 Primarchs to lead each legion. These 20 supreme leaders of the soon-to-come Space Marine legions were crafted by the Emperor using samples of his own arcane genetic code as the base. It is obviously unknown the depth of which the Emperor used his own DNA to create the Primarchs, but later findings through ancient Imperial records do hint that he spliced multiple DNA types together, even going so far as to introduce some animal DNA into the Primarchs. And this would explain why some, such as Leman Russ, would display the wolf-like qualities, and why these would then become present throughout the Space Wolves Legion and chapter. It's difficult to speculate on the Emperor's true goals here, and even if he was successful in the mixing of DNA in this way, it seems highly experimental, and perhaps he himself was not sure of the final result. This period of intelligent design was hasty and somewhat improvised given the dire situation facing mankind. It needed to repopulate its military power in order to springboard and take stage fights forward to reconquer the colonies. Another point of speculation is how closely the Primarchs were imbued with spiritual elements and others such as unnaturally skillful charisma and so on. Still though, in creating the Primarchs and even taking small elements of the Emperor's DNA, it imbued them with these demi-godlike characteristics. It also explains why at this time the barely known forces of chaos would seek out and scatter the developing Primarchs before the Emperor's plans could grow into fruition. Little is known of this Primarch scattering event, but it has been suggested that the dawning forces of chaos felt this expanding power from humanity to threaten them, and in an effort to slow or negate it, they reached out into the mortal world to seize and scatter the fetal Primarchs across the galaxy. Each world they found themselves on would surely in time come to realise that they were far from normal, often finding themselves as a natural leader in command of the systems that would become their home.
So chaos was basically threatened by the rising of all Emperor and his Primarchs. So they acted on it. So they become so powerful, the chaos felt threatened. Right? I mean, to me, this kind of make me feel like, you know how old ones and the Khatans are, right, near godlike things. And I thought about it. Were they gods, like the gods of the war base, like the chaos gods are? But you know, in this, it makes me think that maybe Emperor is one of the gods who basically broke away and got, you know, I guess born or something on the planet, right? Because, you know, the shaman theory is good, but to me this feels like, you know, chaos gods were basically threatened by the emperor and his primarchs because they were that powerful. And they can't just grow themselves to be that powerful. The emperor has to be that powerful from the beginning. So, you know, obviously this might be a reach to think about, but maybe the emperor is one of the gods from the warp, the region of warp that is, you know, opposite of chaos or something. Or chaos gods basically, you know, hate that or whatever. It's an enemy of chaos gods or something, and that became the emperor and trying to expand its power in the, you know, in this world, then rather than in the warp. I don't know.
Later, the Emperor would one by one discover and reunite the Primarchs with their legions, establishing one of the most powerful military forces the galaxy had ever seen. The Thunder Warriors, though, were undoubtedly the early prototypes for the Astartes project, which subsequently makes their untimely end all the more tragic, as their sacrifice was so great, yet the memory of them was totally obliterated. The Astartes project would continue in a pragmatic manner. Each of the early legions at this time contained barely a few hundred marines. Their equipment was lightweight and somewhat improvised by comparison to later standards. They trained their minds and bodies to be the will, might, and rule of the Emperor. Time would pass and their numbers grew. Each legion was divided not only for organisational reasons, but also for practical reasons. Because of their adapted genetics that were drawn from the Primarchs, some carried traits and psychological behaviours which would not have been found comfortable comparison with their sibling legions. This segregation also allowed them to focus their bond to their brothers in their own legion, creating a near unbreakable kinship between Astartes. If the newly created Astartes would be the Emperor's scalpel, his gleaming pinnacle of human achievement, then the Thunder Warriors were certainly a mace used to bludgeon the remnants of humanity back into submission. The Thunder Warriors were genetically stronger though, tougher, and could even be stronger in battle than the newly created Astartes, which is something people often forget. They were a rough, brutal instrument, but ultimately a temporary solution to a violent problem. The Space Marines would serve not only as a weapon, but as beacons to mankind, a glimmer of what humanity could hope to be.
So those earlier prototypes were basically more powerful in a way than Astartes, but not as stable. So I'm back to that again. Maybe in Horus Heresy they would have been helpful, but again, like I said, there would have been Chaos side and Emperor side. They would have been split apart. It wouldn't have mattered, I guess.
The dark times to come, however, would show that this was a misplaced belief, that while the Space Marines were created to represent the pinnacle of human development, they ultimately proved as susceptible to the basic flaws of mankind as any other mortal. The Emperor's campaign on Earth would now come to a close. He began establishing the fundamental elements of a civilized, modernized society in government administration, economy, and infrastructure. An important figure in this process was a man known as Malcador, the Sigillite. He had a vast knowledge of such matters and carried himself with the bearing of a priest. He was appointed to run the courts and palaces of the new empire, the right-hand man of the emperor. Earth would turn from a place of desolation and horror to one of active production, rebuilding, and planning. Some might call it coincidentally convenient, but at this time a vast shockwave would travel through the galaxy. The birth of Slaanesh. Humanity would have no idea of the significance of this, only that it cleared the storms from the warp that had isolated and ruined humanity's gloriously technologically advanced empire. Again though, we could speculate that the Emperor had foreseen these events and the necessity of preparing Earth for this time. On Mars, the humans of the cult Mechanicus, that is those who worship machines, would become aware of this unification on Earth, as information through distant communication and physical observations. They viewed this new emperor as a man in alignment with their own agenda. Mars, during the Dark Age of technology, had been a planet with a single purpose: a powerhouse of production for this age, consolidating ships and weapons, including the vast Titans, hundreds of feet tall, gigantic bipedal war machines whose very presence could end conflicts before they began. Since the end of this age, cults had risen across Mars, and the most prevalent of these was the Mechanicus, whose ideology included the veneration and acquisition of these ancient but highly advanced technologies, from the period known as the Dark Age of Technology. During the period of isolation known as the Age of Strife, Mars had undergone a similar societal collapse comparable to that of Earth. With all trade cut off, they had insufficient water and food to supply the populace. A civil war would follow, as well as the collapse of some planetary infrastructures that shielded their little remaining hydroponics and food production systems. This would lead to a further collapse of the already fragile supporting systems. The Techs, an established Mechanicum, decided the best way to survive this apocalypse would be to retreat into underground bunkers which had been mined out, creating vast cities below the surface. Little is known at this time, but evidently prior to their seclusion, the Mechanicum Techs were a cult who would bear a respect and drive to recover, protect and utilise the lost technologies of mankind. Upon their rise from the subterranean depths, they had in this time translated this over into a complete faith. The tech priests of the Mechanicum, along with their troops, would very quickly subdue the insane irradiated savages who remained on the surface and begin the process of rebuilding and redeveloping Mars to be completely self-sufficient. This, in combination with their access to some of the most powerful war machines ever forged in the galaxy, would without doubt leave the Mechanicus in a position of some power.
So Mechanicus also thrived during the Age of Strife, and basically that's where the religion started too, about the machines and things. Kind of understandable. Damn. So even in the Mars, basically, obviously the cutoff with the warp and travel would trap the Mars and Martians with the resources the same way all the human worlds did. So Mechanicus, first of all, I never asked this. Are the Mechanicus humans or are they different race? Because that's never explained so far, I think. Or did I miss it? I don't know. But yeah, that kind of makes sense. And they, right now, everybody in 40k time, everybody's like, the Emperor is the true God, this and that. And Mechanicus is like, yeah, man, shut up. You're right. We were here when the Emperor was running around. He hated religion. We don't see him as a god because of that.
To the cult of Mechanicus, who are now becoming aware of this emperor figure who had surfaced on Terra, a man of science and technology, this was obviously appealing to the Mechanicus.
Yeah, man of science. Man, I knew the emperor, right? I talked to him, right? He's man of science, and you want me to you telling me that he's a god? Well, fuck off. So that's why. And in the end, you need me for all the equipment. So there you go.
And some tech priests on Mars even began to suggest that the Emperor was a man of such power as to rival their own machine god and fulfill an ancient prophecy in their faith of techno-mysticism. Debates raged on Mars between the priesthood regarding how to treat this new development. All the while, the Emperor, bearing his power of immense foresight, would not be ignorant of the Mechanicum, and he slowly and steadily would begin to craft his new plans accordingly. Plans for a crusade on a galactic scale never before seen. Its purpose? To locate the lost Primarchs, to reunite the territories of humanity, forge a new Imperial Empire, and thrust the Imperium of Man into a position of complete dominance and power throughout the galaxy. The Emperor's plan was one of absolute submission. Anyone who stood against the Imperial truth would be cleansed and destroyed. The Mechanicum of Mars were one of the few exceptions. The Emperor knew that any battle to try and claim dominance over the cult Mechanicum would be hugely counterproductive. Even if he could claim victory over them, the cost to his new Astartes force would be severe and unjustified. So he planned instead to offer a rare alliance with the Council of Tech Priests. In offering them assistance in their own goals and acquisitions of new and lost tech throughout the galaxy, they would provide support, construction of war gear, and tech to Imperial forces. They also were one of the exceptional entities to be allowed to maintain a state of semi-independence within the Imperium, a fairly unique position. The Emperor would also provide a new group of navigators to enable the Mechanicum to travel through the warp again in search of fabled STC units. All of this suited the Mechanicum and Imperium in a symbiotic relationship, and an alliance was created.
Oh, there you go, that's all there was. Yeah. Seriously, so Mechanicus, those tribe, obviously their technological feat is so strong that Emperor thought, let's not wage war against them, that would be really bad. It would be costly, to say the least. Basically, their alliance is still alive in the 40k world, and now their entire Imperium is literally dependent on the Mechanicus for all the equipments, weapons and shit. So yeah, the alliance becomes even more stronger, since Imperium is way too big and badass, but they need Mechanicus for the weaponry, so it's a perfect relationship. That relationship is not going anywhere, I guess. But yeah, why are Mechanicus people, basically when first the religion started of the emperor, why didn't they just go to Terra and told them, like, dude, emperor was a atheist, he didn't like all this shit, we were there, what you talking about? I don't know. Alright people, that's it for now. Half hour has gone. That was the Emperor of Man and the Unification War. So chaos were basically threatened by the emperor, so they really schemed in the background. That makes me think the emperor, even though he didn't want to be worshipped as God, probably was in a way somewhat God-like, or probably even God from the warp, who's basically enemy of the chaos gods or something. That's why chaos saw them as a threat in the first place to do something like this. I don't know. Alright people, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out the Rick Sunday, there's a link in the description with all of my videos. But if it's hard to find, check out the cast for different playlists, like Warhammer 40k playlist with all my Warhammer 40k videos, history, internet historian, Kazgazar in a nutshell. And yeah, comment down, like I said, if you found any of my reaction part, some faults in it, I guess. Am I pausing too much, or whatever, I guess. You can't hear me properly because some filters are on. I'll sort out the filter next time if that's the case. But yeah, I'll see you next time.